It's my pleasure to welcome to this PI Stories seminar for our doctoral students here at University of Trento. And really, I'm extremely happy to have with us Elena, Bruni, and a dear friend of mine, Paolo Aversa. And they are going to share with us important insights about the application process and also some more technical, let's say, details regarding the applications for the Marie Curie funding programs. It is a pleasure, as I told you, to have with us Elena Bruni from Lewis. Paolo was telling us that she won a Marie Curie in management, and Paolo was an associate professor, reader, right, Paolo?
Yeah, reader.
Former CAS Business School, Base Business School in London. Also, Paolo got a Marie Curie Fellowship. And so Paolo will provide a general framing on the program, and then, of course, then Elena will provide more detailed and practical tips for the application and project development, let's say, for this funding opportunity. Very good. So I think that we're going to start. We have already a few questions. We'll come back to this. For the materials, probably Paolo, Elena, maybe you shared already some material.
Yes, we will provide all at least I will provide my slides, and I don't know if Elena is available to share them too, but yeah. And so first of all, let me thank Marco for this opportunity. I know it's always good to do this, to share a little bit what was, at least for me, a positive experience. And actually, I would say more than a positive experience. For me, was a game changer to a certain extent. It was really the career booster that I would say probably reshaped the trajectory of my academic career. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity I had now a few years ago, 10 years ago, to do the Marie Curie. And I think a lot of what happened during that Marie Curie is reflected in my future career. I have a bit of slides that I would like to share, if it's okay for you guys. And again, of course, you will get it as well. Okay, so all right. So here we go. As Marco was saying, I'm an associate professor at Base Business School, a reader in the British term, and I've been there since my Marie Curie. So in preparing this presentation and also being mindful of the fact that we have a limited amount of time, I tried to focus on some aspects that I think could be useful for you, and they're not that easy to find. To a certain extent, there is a terrific amount of information you can find online, as well as seminars provided by different institutions or the European Commission itself on getting a Marie Curie, or in general applying to any sort of grants. And the website of the Marie Curie Fellowship is full of information. So I try not to simply focus on this kind of information that you can easily find, but put together two aspects that are written between the lines. So personally, I will give you an overview of what Marie Curie is and what has represented for me. And I'll also try to reflect a little bit on perhaps some reason why not to do a Marie Curie, because of course, there are also reasons not to do it, potentially, although I think it's a great opportunity. And then I had the pleasure to invite Elena Bruni, which has done basically just completed her Marie Curie, and she will provide a lot of practical tips on the actual submission. And I think it was important to have somebody like Elena, because of course my application now is part of history, in the sense that I applied at a time where also the application process was very different. There was let's say a form of around 40 pages to be filled. And now it's much smaller, but this doesn't mean that it's less competitive. On the contrary, the fact that the application has become smaller has made the number of applications skyrocket. So the selection is really, really tough. And I mean, congratulations to Elena for getting it through in such competitive year. So I will just give you a brief overview on, Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions and what are they. So for those who have no idea what Marie Curie actions are in short. So these are information taken exactly from as they are from the website of the Marie Curie actions. So basically the Marie Curie actions are the European flagship program to support the development of scientific excellence and cooperation, mobility across countries in the research field. And basically the program that develops the Marie Curie is the Horizon Europe now. It is a new program that started in 2021 and will go ahead until 2027. Before that, there was the Horizon program that ended in 2020. I've gave a brief look at the new program. Is not particularly different from the previous one. They changed the name and they refilled the bucket with money, which is quite good because, of course, the more you get closer to the end of the program, the less money there is. So hopefully in the first few years, there will be a bit more support, a bit more funding for that. But basically, the idea of the Marie Curie is to help scholars develop their research profile at an excellent level, and doing it in a way that is typically European, which is, exchanging and creating synergies with scholars, junior and senior, across different countries. So one key aspect of Marie Curie is mobility. So you cannot get a Marie Curie to stay where you are. You have to, if you get a Marie Curie, you have to move. That's the basic message. There are different places where you can move. You can move within European countries, or you can move abroad, outside the European area. There are a list of third countries, which basically cover pretty much almost all, interesting countries to go to. And so I'm pretty sure that you will find countries. There are countries in Africa, in America, and South America, Asia. There's always some country that might fit what you want to do. And the Marie Curie is wrongly assumed to be a project for postdocs or for people who came out of the PhD, which is not the case. Even very senior people can apply for a Marie Curie, or even people that got out of academia and they want to re-enter academia. But however, it is true that the great majority of applications are usually from postdocs, basically, or PhD students, because it is the perfect, let's say, opportunity to finalize maybe the work that you developed in your PhD thesis, maybe get in some publications, and then present yourself to the academic job market. So become an assistant professor or a principal investigator, depending what is your field, right after your PhD. There are a series of principles on which the entire Marie Curie process is based. You can find them better explained in the website, but basically this is the idea of excellence. So they don't fund anybody. They fund people that they consider excellent, and the excellence, of course, it's probably individual, not objective perspective, but they have some criteria for what they consider excellent. And Elena will talk about this later. Mobility, as I was saying, it's incredibly important for them to promote exchange and cultural, not just the research exchange across Europe and across other countries. It's bottom up and open to the world. So the idea is that anybody can apply, and there's a very open approach to the kind of stuff that you can research, as long as it's scientifically relevant and impactful for society. It works with excellent recruitment, working condition, inclusiveness. So the idea that you should receive sufficient money to live considerably well in the country where you go to, and if you have a particularly family condition, there will be some integrations to provide for that. It provides effective supervision and career guidance, because when you move to an institution, you will have a supervisor, basically, that is usually selected by you based on the experience of supervision, the experience in the research field that you want to research in. And sometimes these are people that have also great experience in managing grants, so they can also help you in that right direction. It's about open science and responsible research and innovation, of course, especially for hardcore sciences, medical sciences. There are a series of protocols in place to do responsible, sustainable science. So especially if you have to deal with sensitive data, there will be a lot of attention to those aspects. It is related to European Green Deal, and this is something about sustainability, also environmental sustainability, and of course creating synergies across different programs and other initiatives proposed by the European Commission. So basically, the point here is the European Fellowship is probably the one that is most popular among people, and it's the one about traveling to a different country in Europe, usually for between 12 and 24 months within a EU member state or associated country. And basically you get hosted, which basically means you get hired to a certain extent, like a temporary researcher in the institution that hosts you. And of course, the institution receives the money from the European Commission to pay for your salary and your research expenses. So basically, you go to the institution for free. This is why, between these walls, most cases when you will go and talk to a supervisor or potential institution saying, oh, I'd like to apply for a Marie Curie with you, they will say, yeah, sure, go ahead. Why? Because they have nothing to lose. And if you win it, it's free money for the university, a new researcher that comes in and works, and it's also prestigious because of course there is a sort of it's a performance act to get a Marie Curie. It's not easy at all. So so what you should really look into is also find a supervisor that is committed to help you craft the proposal, that has experience with this kind of proposal, that has experience with supervision of PhD or postdocs, and maybe has done other Marie Curies before, and is also a person that is committed to give you excellent supervision in line with your ambition of as a researcher in the years to come. So there are 3 different panels in which you can be evaluated. I guess most of you will probably submit to a standard panel, which is basically the one where everybody applies. One important aspect is that you cannot have spent more than 12 months in the previous 3 years in the country that will host your fellowship. So let's put it this way: if you were doing a visiting from your institution, let's say Trento, to Germany, and you had spent, let's say, 1 year there, and then at a certain point you run out of money, and you want to, make it longer and stay there longer by using a Marie Curie, you cannot do it because you spent 1 year there, so 12 months. And so they will require you maybe to move to a different place. So you have to be careful where you apply. And of course, the application are evaluated by different research fields and specific panels. So if you apply in engineering, you will have somebody from engineering. In management, somebody from economics or management, or maybe sociology. Of course, it is hard for them to find a person that is really a specialist of your specific research question, your specific theory. And this is why also your application should be, let's say, intelligible to people that are not exactly from your conversation. But let's say if you apply for things related to management, you will not be evaluated by a medical doctor. That's important. There's a career start panel. I'm not going to spend much time here, but basically this is about people that had at least 12 months career break, and within the 18 months prior to the call deadline. So if for some reason in your life, could be health or a child or something like that, family reasons, you had to interrupt your career, this is basically, it helps you to restart your career research-wise. And then there's the career reintegration panel, which is the one for people who are moving back from a third-party country into the European Union, and they want to, basically be reinserted into the system. And of course, this is a more specific type of project, and usually it requires that you've been abroad, but it is also very important of people who got it, and it's really good if you get it. There is also, as I was saying, a global fellowship, which is about going outside the, let's say, the European EU member states. And it can be between 12 and 14 months. One very important aspect is that, some people think this could be a good way to flee the country and go, and live in America. You have to remember that if you win this, you have a 12 months return, mandatory return into EU after the grant. So you cannot just go there and stay there. Otherwise, they ask you the money back. So even if you decide to stay longer, because maybe, I don't know, you go to Canada and you love it there, and you say, and your supervisor offers you a job, which is quite common sometimes in Marie Curie fellows. You basically need to tell your supervisor, well, I need to go back for a year to, I don't know, Italy or wherever you're from, and then eventually you can hire me. Otherwise, you have to give me the money back that I need to return to the European Union, which is not great. Because of course, we have to be honest, the European Union wants to keep the people, the good people, the excellent scholar inside the one of the countries of the union. So it is very good if you want to move to a third country within EU, but if you want to move outside EU, they're basically giving away your talent. So they try not to create this sort of incentive. So what are you required to do? Well, technically it's very easy. If you look at this, there are 3 steps, right? Very straightforward. So first of all, you need to identify a topic for your research. Remember, you're submitting a project that gets evaluated based on the quality of the project, the quality of your quality as a scholar, given the career progression where you're at. So if you're last year PhD student or first year postdoc, of course you will not be compared to people that are 20 years into the job. You'll be compared at your level of development given peer groups of same seniority. Of course, your project needs to be interesting on a research standpoint and has to be publication potential and needs to have some public policy implications. So it needs to have some sort of impactful meaning for society. You need to identify a senior scientist in a host institution, and of course here look at the prestige of the institution, look at the prestige of the supervisor, look at the fit between what you want to do and the expertise of the supervisor. And then you have to write the proposal and submit it, and keep your fingers crossed for a few weeks until you hear back from the commission. That basically what will happen is they will give you a score, and the score doesn't necessarily imply that you will get the money or not, because basically what they have a pot of money and they put you in a ranking and they start giving the money to the people on the top until they have money. When they get to the first one that doesn't have money, when they don't have any more money, these people don't get funded. So the quality of score that gets awarded varies from year to year depending on the money available. And there are projects that had scored 85% out of 100 and didn't get funded. So and you can imagine it's very competitive. So fundamentally, the criteria, as I was mentioning, is excellence of the proposal, impact of the proposal, and quality and efficiency of the implementation. Meaning, the thing that you propose to do has to be feasible within the time frame and within the infrastructure provided by the fellowship. So you cannot come up with a project that will take 20 years to develop and use the Marie Curie to develop the first 2 years. It has to be something that, to a certain extent, at the end of the project, needs to have some deliverables. And a winning proposal usually presents a promising candidate, a strong and feasible project, a sensible fit with a foreign destination, a credible institution, major policy impact, knowledgeable supervisor, a lot of training for yourself to empower your capabilities, and a feasible but ambitious project plan. The application per se is not huge. It's around 10 pages these days. When I did it, it was more than 40. So it was really, really a lot to write. But as I was saying now, because it's so little, a lot of people just try. So there's a lot of noise in the system and it's becoming complicated. I would say, as a rule of thumb, to prepare a Marie Curie, you need at the very least 1 month full work. But this is really the minimum, I think, to get something that is decent. Probably more, and Elena can tell you more about this. Let me just give you a bit of an overview of what I think about Marie Curie. So for me, Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions are great. It's a great opportunity, and there was a lot of pros. When I applied to the Marie Curie, I was in the US. I was a postdoc at the Wharton School, and I met a professor at the Wharton School from City University of London. His name is Charles Baden-Fuller, and funny enough, he had been a Marie Curie supervisor of my PhD supervisor, and which is Professor Simone Feriani, and also other people that I knew, like Vanina Torlò. And so he had a positive experience with people coming from Bologna, which is where I was coming from, and so he was very positive in supervising my project. We submitted. I got the Marie Curie in basically I was communicated in late 2011. And then in summer 2012, after the Olympic Games in London, I moved to London. I did my 2-year Marie Curie projects. My research was based on studying patterns of innovation in the Formula One industry to identify technology solutions and innovation strategies that could be transferred to the automotive industry, which is one of the biggest industries in Europe. And it went so well that in the end, I loved the place where I was staying. That's where I met with Marco. We were desk mates back then. And after many papers and many pizzas, I had the opportunity to remain as a lecturer, so as an assistant professor at the school. So for me, it all turned out well. And actually, the proposal turned into a bunch of projects that ultimately defined my profile in the research space, in the research domain. And still today, people probably know me more for the work that I've done during the Marie Curie than the stuff that I'm doing now that is not necessarily related to Formula One, but still people remember my studies on Formula One. So for me, it was like a win-win. And at the end of this, I got some papers published and even got a prize for the communication prize, which is a prize that Marie Curie gives for those 10 projects that are particularly good at communicating the results of science. Of course, working with Formula One and such a quirky but sort of interesting topic, I had an easy life in communicating the results. But anyway, so the pros of the Marie Curie. First of all, you get a lot of time to develop your, not someone else's project. Okay, and this is quite important to compare with other type of postdocs. Postdocs usually are projects, you're hired by a senior supervisor, a senior scholar that receives some grants, some money to develop the project. And so you're hired to support this supervisor to develop his or her project. The good thing about Marie Curie is that you are not hired to work on someone else's project. You are bringing your own money to the institution. And with this money, you are basically required to work on your project. So it is about you. And to a certain extent, the supervisor is paid, gets a little bit of money, not much, from your grant to provide supervision to your project, to your papers, to your book, to whatever you're doing. So basically, it's a lot of time for you and not running around someone else's project that might not be of interest or that might not lead to publications. Another point is that usually Marie Curie don't require teaching and not admin. I mean, besides managing your own grants and stuff. And technically, you have no bosses. You're the bosses of yourself, and you have a supervisor that is there to help you, but is not your boss technically. And you might be willing to do teaching, and they might ask you to do some teaching, and to a certain extent, it's also good to do it. But you don't have duties. So differently from other postdocs where you're required to do teaching, or even assistant professorship where you're required to do teaching, you have much time for research, and it's an important achievement in itself. It is something that will always shine on your CV and something you should be proud of. And it's a positive signal that might help you for future research because you're basically flagged at the European Commission. And when you apply for other grants, maybe ERC later on in your career, theoretically, you should have an advantage, particularly if your project was successful and delivered a good number of publications and develop your profile. It's possibility to put a foot in the doorstep with important institution that could be your next employer was my case, typical. I was there and then there was a fit with the school. The school happened to be hiring when I finished my Marie Curie, so I stayed where I was. I don't think I would have had the same opportunity without a postdoc or a Marie Curie there. It is prestige and visibility. It gives you access to a great research network and tailored opportunities just for Marie Curie fellows. On top of which, you get a generous salary. Basically, I remember my supervisor when he heard that I got the Marie Curie, he told me, you're never going to see that kind of money without teaching anymore in your life. So you better take it and enjoy it, because it's really, it will allow you to live comfortably in the place where you go, and you have a very generous research budget for anything else like, conferences, materials that you might need. So it's really valuable, particularly if you're in social sciences like I am. 11K more or less of, I don't know, Elena, maybe you will tell us later how much it is now, but I remember my time was quite a good money. And I had more money than some of my tenure professor, in the faculty. So it was great. So it is great, but my suggestion is also to consider alternative options or potential challenges. So the question that you should ask yourself before applying to a Marie Curie is, how good am I at managing freedom and independence? Because you will really need to manage yourself, right? You have, it seems a lot to have 2 years, but it's actually not that much, because if, especially in management, the job market moves with 1 year in advance, which basically means that 1 year into the project, you have to start looking for a new job. So you really need to be focused and make the best out of the time that you have there. And if you're not really good at that, it might be challenging. You might feel sometimes alone in what you're trying to do, and it can be challenging. And then you should consider alternative to MSc. So if you get maybe a very good assistant professorship in a place that you love, and they offer you a job, and you want to do that, you might want to consider that, because ultimately Marie Curie is a mean to something else. But if that something else comes without going through the Marie Curie, if somebody offers you an assistant professorship at Harvard, you might want to consider whether to take a Marie Curie or not. Or other postdocs. Usually postdocs, in my opinion, are less prestigious and less valuable than Marie Curie, but it might be that you get hired maybe by a senior scholar that you are really keen to work with, and in a really good institution that that treats the postdocs very well on many levels, still leaves you a lot of time to develop things that you like. And so you might want to prioritize a normal postdoc rather than a Marie Curie. Also, you have to consider you're going to be away from your country or a home institution, and how happy will you be with that? If your family and for some reason, or people you love, they cannot come with you. You also have to consider how your happiness will be affected, how this will impact your productivity. And then ask yourself whether you have sufficient time to prepare a reasonably competitive application, because time is limited, and so if you don't have enough time to do a strong applications, rather focus on your papers, your research, because that will ultimately get you a job. And in general, Marie Curie is a bit of a double-edged sword, in the sense that they put you really for 2 years in the best possible position to develop your profile, to develop your papers, and come out stronger on the research field. But to a certain extent, at the end of the 2 years, people that will know that you got a Marie Curie, they expect you to have developed. Because the problem is, if you've done the Marie Curie and at the end of the Marie Curie, you're pretty much where you were at the beginning of the Marie Curie, people will look at you and think, okay, this person had all the best opportunities, all the best resources, all the best condition to crack out the right papers, and she or he didn't do it. So how good this person will be if we hire them and give them, even teaching workload and administration and other things in really developing. So to a certain extent, it's like they put you in the best condition to deliver, but then if you don't deliver, this might backfire, because then you haven't made the best of what you got. So how likely is it to be awarded? So in 2020, there were 11,300 proposals, and around 1,630 were funded. The distribution of success is pretty much the same across the three schemes, with global fellowship being slightly higher success rate, but not really, that's significant. It's pretty much, around 15, 16%. So it's not that much, out of 100 people that apply, 16 people, 15 people get it. It's quite competitive, as you can imagine. There's also this seal of excellence. So if you score 85% or more, but still you're not, in the bracket that gets funded, you get this sort of seal of excellence, and this you can use it as a, sort of signal when you reapply to the program or to other programs. It is a, a modest consolation prize, but it's better than nothing, because getting 85 and above is a very good result in general, and you should be making something out of it. So finishing with a line from Marie Skłodowska-Curie herself, life is not easy for any of us, But what of that? We must have perseverance and above all, confidence in ourselves. We must believe that we are gifted for something and this thing must be attained. So, it seems like, they should use it to motivate people to apply, and I'm actually very, very happy that with all this good scholar researcher that there is in Europe, they chose this extraordinary woman to be the flagship program. So I think with this wish, I can just wish you best of luck and pass on the baton to Elena. Thank you.
So thanks a lot, Paolo, for your amazing presentation. How much time do I have, Marco?
We're scheduled until 2, if I'm not wrong.
Okay, so I'll try to prepare some slides as well. So you should be able to see them now. Can you see?
You can see the slides.
I'm just trying to make it, okay, here. So here you have the wonderful library at VU, where I spent the last 2 years, actually before the pandemic. And as you can see from the title, when I joined VU, I wanted to study the anti-vaccination movement, and it was quite shocking, I would say, because it was right before the break of the initial moment of the pandemic. But actually, I wrote my Marie Curie in 2018. I'm going to skip the presentation about myself because it's not so important. So I wrote, and I applied for the Marie Curie during the summer 2018, and I started my fellowship in Vienna in 2020. Paolo gave you really important information. He mentioned the fact that you should start writing your Marie Curie at least 1 month in advance, but I'll give you my experience. I'm not saying that it's it's a kind of rule, but still that's what worked, at least for me. So I started to make the first contact with the OC institution in June, actually. So it was some months before the deadline. At that time, it was September 21st. In July, mid-June or July, I started to write and to collect all the documents I needed for the application. July and August, basically, I spent, especially August, I remember I didn't take any break in August. And I spent all my time in the library writing the proposal. And what I did in September, basically, I only polished the proposal, revised the application, and had a constant interaction with the research office in Vienna. So that's the timeline that it was at least useful for me. How and why I started the Marie Curie. I always wanted to apply for a Marie Curie, I would say. At that time, I was in Venice. I was really involved in teaching, which was an amazing experience for me. But I spent the majority of my time teaching, even Saturday, I remember. So at one point, I sent several applications to be an assistant professor, while I also basically did both at the same time, writing the proposal. I knew that I wanted to do it, but I was a little bit insecure about the topic. So my research interests at that time, and even now, they were about cognitive linguistic metaphors and tropes and qualitative methods, because I'm a qualitative scholar. Most of my research, I would say the majority of my research is done by qualitative research. So I was thinking about the topic when this tweet appeared online, and probably you know the tweet I'm talking about, I'm referring about. And that's when my idea emerged. So I put all the pieces together, I would say, that they were the pillars of my research. And I say, okay, now I can write a proposal about vaccination, anti-vaccination sentiment, discourse analysis, institutional theory. And also the tweet is really important. That's why it's in this slide, because I wanted to analyze the interaction of verbal text and visual text together. So what I did, I needed to find the best and the perfect institution where I could conduct this type of research. My first idea was to contact, and actually I did it. I wrote an email to Cliff Oswick, he's one of the best scholars about discourse analysis and metaphors. And also I spent some time, at that time it was Cass Business School. And I remember I sent an email, say, okay, Cliff, can I come in London? And this is my proposal. But after a while, after a deep reflection, I realized that it was good, of course, because we know the prestige of this kind of institution, but still it was not the right fit for my research, for my topic. So let's say I worked in a kind of reverse engineer mentality. So I made my research. I knew Renata Maya at that time, of course, because she's the best scholar who actually opened the lead to the multimodality school. So I sent an email to Renata Meyer and proposing her to be my supervisor. Of course, I sent her a brief introduction of my topic, and as Paolo said, she was quite she was really happy, and she said, of course you can come here, you can apply, and you can you can write in that WU Vienna is going to be your OSCE institution. So WU Vienna is equally highly ranked university as by its business school. It has an excellent team of scholars in multimodality, language, grand challenges, institutional theory, and as you can see, all this topic, all these streams of literature, they were going to be included in my research project. So it was at the ultimately, it was the better fit for my project, because remember, the fit between your topic and the institution is going to be evaluated by the reviewers. So that's why at the end I decided to put to switch Vienna as the OSCE institution and by business school as the secondment. So the initial step, what I did at the very beginning, so how I selected the OSCE institution, as I said, I did my own research. Actually, I talked to Cliff. We have a very nice relationship, but still, it was my own personal research that led me to decide WU instead of London. So I also made my research about the alignment between supervision and the broader department at WU, and what I did after that, he was starting to prepare all the documents that were included in the application. So when Renata, as I said, say yes, we started to exchange our the draft. But I have to be honest, I always read the entire application. Wrote the entire application. She provided with me very interesting and very useful and really important feedback, but I wrote the application. I also contacted the WU research office because it was crucial at the very end of the when I wrote the project, and I'm going to mention that at the very end of my presentation. So as I said, I wrote the proposal, and this is very important, I submitted the proposal. So it's really important that you start to how can I say, to know what the European Commission portal is, because especially at the beginning, it could be quite tricky to understand how it works. So my suggestion, it's my personal suggestion, but I think it's it's quite wise suggestion to give to you. Start with the B1. I don't know whether you know that the European grants usually work through two different documents that you have to, or proposals that you have to submit, B1 and B2. B1 is the longest, the tiring, and the painful part to write, because it's still, you have to write 10 pages, but they are going to, first of all, the reviewers, they evaluate according to the B1. And if they are convinced about the B1, they read the second part, the B2. And the B2 includes your CV, the host institution profile. So let's say it's more technical. Or the most important part of the projects are going to be included in B1. So start drafting this part and working later on to the second part. As Paolo told you at the beginning, don't assume that reviewers know your topic. Generally speaking, the reviewers are selected because they belong to the specific field. Paolo mentioned that they belong to a certain panel, but still sometimes they can work in different fields. They can know something different about your topic. So I summarize here that the five most important in order to be effective. So be clear, cohesive, complete, concise, and concrete. So don't use too much jargon, especially the academic one. Use acronyms because they help you to save some space, but you shouldn't think that you are writing a paper, an academic paper. You are writing an European grant. Start thinking about your project and structure your project from the very beginning according to 2 different sections, because you are going to be evaluated according to 3 different sections. So the excellence, impact, quality, and efficiency of the implementation, as Paolo mentioned before. And I'll give you some practical example in a few moments. So this is very important. So again, you need to shift your mind, your logic, your mindset that you usually use in academia, and think how your project is important. Thinking about these 3 different lenses. So here I put some practical tips that I use that at least they work for me. So you have no more than 10 pages. Even if you try to upload, let's say 11 or 12 pages, they are going to be automatically deleted by the system. So the reviewers are going to read only 10 pages. So in order to save space, you can use one of this font, that at least it worked for me, and use tables to summarize your most important points and your most important, let's say, activities like work packages, milestones, and weaknesses. Sorry, and also you can put the references as footnotes, not like in the within the content directly. So the B1 here, I thought it would be useful for you to just see like something very practical. So as I said, the first criterion, which is going to be evaluated by the reviewer, the excellence. So as you can see here, this is how I introduced my topic, my idea, why my topic should be interesting for the reviewers. So I directly started, let's say, by mentioning the European pillars, the European values, in order to provide a broader perspective, a broader impact. So at the very end of the introduction, I reiterated the fact how my project could be inclusive, could also address societal issues, societal problems. Right after the introduction, you are required to write the state of the art, which is basically the literature review. And as you can see here, I put all the references in the as footnotes. So you have enough space, let's say, to develop your idea, your project, the main points of your project. So the second criterion by which you're going to be evaluated, the impact. So, and what it means, impact, because it could be a little bit tricky to be, let's say, effective and specific. At that time, I decided to disentangle impact into 3 different levels. At researcher level, basically by myself, how winning, getting a Marie Curie could generate an impact in my personal career. And I think Paolo was quite, let's say, he provided the information that you need, but also the impact for the host institution, so at the organizational level, which kind of impact you can have when you join the institution, the department, but also, which is really important, impact at the system level, so at societal level, because you always be mindful of the fact that European Commission wants to fund projects that are really important for society. And this is important for all the partners, not only for the for some discipline like medics or the other ones. Okay. Please, you can stop me anytime if you have any doubts or any question. So the third criterion by which we are going to evaluate it is the quality and efficiency of the implementation. And practically speaking is how you are going to implement your project. And in order to be effective when you, or to convince the reviewer that you are going to be self-disciplined in the next, if you get the Marie Curie in 2 years, you need to think in terms of work packages, tasks, and deliverables. Because I didn't mention before, the research questions that we are usually used to think in a research question. You have to state the research question in the introduction and the in the first part of the proposal. In this part of the proposal, you only need to mention about the work packages, basically what you want to do and how you're going to do it. So the task and also the deliverables that you are going to upload constantly to the system, to the European Commission, because they want to monitor that all the money that you receive, that you are using the money that you receive. So here, this is the table that I provided in my proposal. As I said, sometimes table can be really useful because you can be more effective, and also reviewers are going to review thousands of applications, so they don't have so much time to read the proposal. So tables are also useful for them. Okay. So the B1, in sum, you need to emphasize how and why a Marie Curie can be a game changer for your career. And it's interesting because we use the same word, Paolo and I, even though we didn't talked about that before. And you need to convince the reviewer that it could be a game changer for your personal career, and also not only in the 2 years, but even after. And in order to convince them, you need to provide examples. So you can say that if you join a specific institution, you can use their training. Also, the secondment can be really important for you in order to strengthen certain international network. Or you can, again, use some specific workshop organized by the institution. In my case, I mentioned the fact that I could use writing retreats or specific seminars that organized by the Vienna. Also, the interaction with some scholars that work at the institute. So that's why you need to collect a lot of information about the host institution, not only regarding the people working there, but also as an organization at the broader level. So take some time to do that. Other two elements that are really important in the B1 are the Gantt and the budget. The Gantt, they told me that it's not really important as when Paul and I applied our projects. But it's, let's say, it's a kind of habit to include a Gantt. The Gantt basically summarize all your activities, tasks, and deliverables that you are going to do in the 2 years. So, and it has to be, again, quite straightforward. So when you read it, you have to include all the information that you brought in the application, and you really need to to be sure that there are no inconsistencies. So a good habit it's to start writing the drafting the Gantt and the project at the same time, because you're going to change both of them during the writing. And the second is the budget. It's not important as when you apply for an ERC. It's quite, as you can see here, it's a very basic Gantt, budget, sorry, in which you have to divide the budget according to the work packages that you propose. In my case, there were 5 different work packages, and again, you can ask support to the research office. In my case, I was pretty lucky because the person who works at the WU Vienna, she's great. She's really supportive. She gave me an amazing helps and insights of how to write also the budget. So here I included how I could use the research, the money for research training, and even networking costs. So other general tips. So you need to plan all the steps quite in advance, which means even the conceptualization, the idea, because it's not so easy to find an idea that it's like a kind of breakthrough for the European Commission. You need to plan how much time you have to write the proposal. In my case, I spent my summer break writing the proposal. I also applied for an ERC recently, and I spent my Christmas holidays writing the proposal. So you need to think, okay, do I want to use my personal time to do that? Because we are all busy among other stuff. So you need to make this kind of question to yourself quite in advance. It's really important that you prepare some documents in advance, which means like the ethics requirements and the CV. The CV is not so difficult to do it. On the other side, the ethics requirements and documents, they can take a lot of time, maybe, okay. And this is very important if you, Paolo mentioned that earlier. So if you suggest that you're going to, let's say, have sensitive data, or you're going to ask specific question to regarding sexual orientation or religion or this kind of issues, you need to provide some documents, and it's not sometimes easy to do it. So please take some time. Also, what is really important is that you ask the research office, the OSCE research office, to make some steps, which means that you formalize your position within the European Commission portal. Otherwise, you will be unable to upload your application, and sometimes you can have some support also in filling the documents regarding the ethics requirements and so on and so forth. Another suggestion that it really worked for me is to ask colleagues, friends for being friendly reviewers, or even try to contact former Marie Curie fellows to share with them the application. I did it several times with other applicants, not of course with all the people that not too much, because there are sensitive data, but still, when I was contacted by other people, I usually share my application in order to help future people to get the Marie Curie Fellow. So another suggestion: open the account, the portal in the European Commission portal as soon as you decide to apply for the Marie Curie and when you start writing the proposal, do not submit it at the very last moment, because I know people that they did it and they were unable to do it. So it's even suggested by, if you read the guidelines by the European Commission. So here you have a few, a screenshot of what I mean by the European portal. So to conclude, it's a game changer. I found this image by Bansky quite interesting and quite relevant for what Marie Curie is. It's a game changer, actually. It could be. You need to be innovative, creative when you write a proposal, but you really need to be, you need to reflect on how you can innovate and you have an impact, not only in academia, but also in the society and how you can change the society. You need some planning in advance combined with vision. You also need to use the language, the vocabulary of the European Commission, which means to use words like project, impact, or packages, milestone. You also need to structure your project according to the objectives, the why, so it could be excellent, and you also need to include that you are concerned about the ethics, the integrity, and also how you could be inclusive when you conduct your research in the future. So thanks a lot for your attention, and of course you are more than welcome to make me any kind of questions. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation and for your contribution to this seminar. Now probably we will have some questions. Unfortunately, I have to disconnect due to some teaching, unfortunately, but I would be happy then to leave you with the support then, of course, of our doctoral office. If you're available in case there are specific questions, that would be great. And I also seize the opportunity to thank again for your presentation, for helping our students, and thank you very much. Thank you, Elena. See you soon. Thank you, Francesca, and I also see the opportunity to say hello to our students. Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks for inviting me.
Okay, I don't know if you have any questions, and if you want to write down your questions in the chat, so then Elena can answer the questions. I see no questions.
Sorry, it's okay that I ask here?
No problem. Go. Yes, please.
All right. Yeah. I have just a couple questions. Paolo was mentioning that that a good number of publications for a PhD Marie Curie action. What would be that? Like, what do they consider a good number?
You mean when you apply or right after when you?
After. So my current situation is like I'm now a PhD under a Marie Curie Fellowship.
Okay.
In the Horizon 2020 program, and I would like to. I mean, I like the whole mobility concept, and I would really like to take the next step. So try to go for a postdoc Marie Curie. So the first question would be, does it influence at all that I had a previous Marie Curie Fellowship as a PhD? And then, yeah, regarding the number of the publications that could be acceptable. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks a lot. Okay, regarding the question of the publication, it really depends on what you promise at the beginning of your. I'm not familiar with the Marie Curie as a PhD, but as a general rule, it really depends on what you promise when you applied for the first Marie Curie. So there's no, let's say, good number of papers that you should have published when you when you present the Marie Curie, but still, if you deviate, let's say, from what you promised at the beginning, you always need to make a kind of justification. Just give you an example. Because of the COVID, I couldn't do any secondment. I prepared my final report and I submitted my final report in February, and I had to justify that why I didn't do that. I hope that I convinced the reviewer that my justification is good enough. But still, again, the number of publication, I don't know whether, did you submit a proposal, Tullio, when you got your Marie Curie for the...
No, actually there was
Okay.
there was a project. There was another institution was, let's say, the project coordinator, and then they invited Unitrento to participate, and then we delivered a program that was already there. So it was like a couple of deliverables, but I'm not sure if a deliverable means that it has to be published or something. I mean, there's nothing there, so.
But still, each program has different requirements. So Paolo and I know pretty well the Marie Curie Fellowship as individual fellowship, which are they have different requirements, probably the requirements that you have with your program. So probably you need to check the requirements of your program, and which means that I don't have any answer on how many papers you have to submit at the end of your Marie Curie. But as Paolo mentioned at the beginning, it's always a good sign when you apply for other projects and you got already an European grant. So in my case, I applied for the ERC, and hopefully I get, let's say, some points because I'm a former Marie Curie fellow, and I was successful. It's not the only, of course, criterion they use. It's just a good sign, let's say. Okay, but for each program also you need to look at the eligibility, whether you are able to apply for other European grant in case you had so you need to check. But usually it's always a good sign when you already had some European grant in the past.
All right,
I don't know if I answered to your question.
Yeah, no, it's fine, it's
Okay.
fine. Yeah, thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Okay. Anyway, I will send you my presentation, and if you have any kind of question, you can just email me. The email is at the end of the presentation, and I would be more than happy to share my other suggestions with you. Okay.
Okay, thank you so much, Elena.
You're welcome.
All for participating, and just would like to remind you the next appointment that will be 24th of March. So see you next week. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.